So yeah, I unfortunately missed our last meeting, but my name is Ella Stevie. You've seen me here several times. I've been on the team since we started, and I'm the interim project manager since Liz left and before we hire her replacement. Even after that, though, I will continue to be on the team, so you'll see me plenty. Yeah, so I will get us going on this meeting. Shani, do you want to share the screen with the presentation? So thank you all for making it. I know it's tricky with a not our regularly scheduled meeting, which would have been during Thanksgiving weekend. So really appreciate your flexibility in making this extra meeting work. And especially happy to have you here since we won't be meeting in December. So great to have one more touch point before 2021 is somehow over. So yeah, tonight we're going to, I'm just gonna go through the agenda here today. Then I'm gonna hand it over to Councilman Sandoval to say a few words. Then what we're gonna spend a little bit of time talking about the draft vision statement. So as you all remember from the last two meetings, you've been working with Grace and the rest of us to develop these vision statements. So we've taken the language that you guys gave us from those past two meetings and turn them into vision statements. So we'll take a quick look at them today. Grace is going to walk us through that. I know that many people, like definitely myself, can't just like look at a large paragraph and instantly react to it. So we're not going to expect you to do that. We'd like to get really, if you have any initial thoughts and high level comments, but what we're going to do is we're going to send out the vision statements along with a short survey. So you have time to read them, think about them, and respond to them that way. So that'll be part of the homework that we send in December. So today we're just going to spend a short amount of time at the beginning so you guys can get a preview of them and see what you'll be reviewing more thoroughly. We want to spend the bulk of our time on a pretty complete report out of all the things that we've learned so far. So that is from the steering committee, what we've heard from you all, from the public outreach we've done, and also from the data and other existing conditions research that we've done. So Cheney is going to walk through all of that, and we're going to kind of divide that up into 4 topics. So what we're going to do, Cheney's going to present, starting with the land use and built form, and then we want to hear from you guys. So we're going to go through what we've learned, but then we want to hear, did we get this right? It's really important to get your feedback at this point, at this kind of preview stage, because we're working on a bigger report that's going to capture all of that. So if we didn't quite get something right, we want to know from you tonight so that we can kind of correct course on that while we do the bigger report, because then that report is going to guide our work for the next month. So for the 45 minutes, we're going to talk about land use and built form, and then economy and housing. We're going to take a quick break between them, and then we're going to jump back in to cover mobility and quality of life. So Cheney is going to walk us through those pieces. And then we'll just briefly at the end wrap up with the homework again, what I mentioned about the vision statements and a little more follow up on this kind of report out that we're doing. So with that, I will hand it over to Councilman Sandoval.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ella, for that great report out. Just wanted to thank all of you who responded to our text messages and are here tonight. Attendance is important, and I know how tricky things can be. So just wanted to say that that was our new way of trying to communicate. Sometimes emails can go back and forth all day long, and so we're going to just work on sending out a quick text the day of so that we can remember, because I know we have so much going on. And just wanted to thank you all for your dedication and getting us this far. in this process, and hopefully in January we can start meeting. We have a little neighborhood thing going on in Highland. So for those who are interested in the Highland, it's on Platt Street. We're talking about the near Northwest. We'll have someone from either the consultant group or CPD there. So if you're interested in that, please put it in the chat and I can forward you the Eventbrite so that you can sign up. And then other than that, I just wanted to take a minute. Devin, can you turn on your camera? And I'd like to pass it over to our new intern, Devin, who you might hear from through the process, who's helping us on this. And he's our intern for Northwest Denver, District 1. I just wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself. Devin?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. My name is Devin and I'm the intern here for District 1. And it's finally nice to see all of your faces. I've been watching these recordings for quite some time, so it's good to actually be in this meeting here. And I'm looking forward to working with you guys and getting this going here. So thanks.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ella. And thanks for those who just texted or put in the chat about the text messages. Yeah, sometimes a text gets my attention pretty quickly. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Ella. Thank you.
Great, thank you, and welcome, Devin. All right, just a refresher of our Zoom etiquette: that turn on your video if possible and mute when not speaking. So normally you can chat Edson with issues. He is going to be out tonight, but Ryan has joined our team, so you are welcome to reach out to her if you have any technical issues. And again, I'm not sure if we have any members of the public on tonight, but if so, you are welcome to put questions in the chat and we'll try to answer them at the end if we have time. And this meeting is being recorded, just a reminder. Next slide. So just a quick refresher on the timeline that we're kind of wrapping up that first, the understanding the area phase and moving into the defining the issues and developing initial recommendations. And I'm seeing a couple people in the waiting room, sorry. Okay, so ground rules again, we've seen this before, but just a refresher of allowing room for all and firsts before seconds. When agreeing, avoid repeating what others have said. When disagreeing, being respectful. And you're welcome to, use the raise hand or chat. I'm going to try and keep an eye on both of those once I stop talking. All right, next slide. So now I'm going to hand it over to Grace, who is going to, go over the vision statement.
So hi everybody. So I'm excited because we're getting to share with you these first drafts. And I want to thank you guys so much for putting so much time and care into working on these last few meetings. Our team really incorporated a lot of the language that you created, as well as the community input. And I'm excited because as I'm seeing the drafts, I can really imagine how these are going to be used to help motivate the community and also to help give policymakers a direction to move towards. So tonight, as Ella mentioned, we're not going to have a discussion about the vision elements. We're going to kind of send those to you via email and give you time to process them. And we really want to get your input on the issue summary. So what we're going to do is we're going to read through them. And then I'm just going to kind of ask you if there's any ideas that are in the vision statements that you kind of feel that you cannot support. And so then after this meeting, again, we're going to send those vision statements with a survey for you later on, so that you can kind of process them and give us feedback this way. And we don't have a meeting in December, so hopefully that gives you a little bit of extra time to do that. So the way we'll do this is I'll read the first vision statement, but then I would really like some volunteers so we can see some other faces from the steering committee in here to read the other ones as they come up. And so if you're willing to do that, if you could just indicate that in the chat, that would be great. So I guess we'll just kind of get going here. Okay, so this first is the vision statement for the strong and authentic neighborhoods vision element. So this is what we came up with. In 2040, the near Northwest neighborhoods are comprised of residents and families from diverse backgrounds and incomes. The Latino, Chicano, and Italian influence of the near Northwest is celebrated and experienced through cultural and community building events, public art, shared public spaces, and places. business types and ownership, historic preservation, and reuse of authentic structures. Displaced residents are able to settle back in the near Northwest if they choose. The design of buildings and public spaces embraces and involves the community, and the result is a celebrated urban design where new buildings blend in and respect the historic fabric of our neighborhoods. So again, we're kind of just wanted to share these with you today since you worked so hard, but we'll send them to you. But we wanted to ask, and you can type this in the chat or verbally share, if there's anything you see here that you really kind of feel you cannot support. Otherwise, we'll kind of move forward. Do we get any volunteers to read the next one for us? Ashton has volunteered. Thank you so much, Ashton. All right, if we could pull the next one up on the screen, then we'll have Ashton read that one. So this is for the equitable, affordable, and inclusive vision element.
All right, you can hear me. In 2040, Northwest has created housing for all by expanding housing options, finding new housing locations, and embracing a range of housing types, sizes, and prices. Innovative housing options are available in a spectrum of options that fit all social, economic, and lifetime levels, allowing the near Northwest children to grow up and stay in the area as working adults, and near Northwest parents to stay as empty nesters. Access to wealth building for lower income residents is available through programs, incentives, and innovative ownership models.
Thank you so much for doing that. So kind of again, we're just kind of trying to share them with you this evening. If there's anything that stands out that you feel that you cannot support, just let us know in the chat or verbally. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to move forward to the next one. And if you guys think of anything as we move forward, we know this is a lot to process. So again, that's kind of why we're sending them to you so that you can kind of have more time to read them to yourselves. Would anyone like to volunteer to read this one? Ashton, thank you so much for doing that. If not, I'm okay. I can continue reading. I just thought someone might want to see some of your
Rebecca volunteered, I think.
Rebecca?
I did, yeah.
Rebecca, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
In 2040, Northwest enjoys community-oriented and diversely owned businesses and goods, including along revitalized former streetcar commercial nodes, transit corridors like Federal Boulevard, West 38th Avenue and Spear Boulevard, and new mixed-use neighborhood centers. Long-term businesses have been sustained and new businesses have emerged, including low-threshold startups like pop-up businesses, food trucks, and retail stands. Active uses, shared public spaces, and intentional streetscapes encourage small gatherings. A thriving arts community and scene has expanded in the Navajo Arts District and is bolstered and sustained by partnerships with recreation centers, schools, community events and festivals, nonprofits, and other public and philanthropic funding. A pipeline of job opportunities is fed through near Northwest educational and vocational institutions and match the diversity of the neighborhood. From first-time jobs in high school to service industry, trades to industrial, construction, and high-tech jobs to executive offices.
Thank you so much for reading that, Rebecca. So I'll give you guys a moment to just, if there are any ideas in here that you feel like you could not support, just kind of indicate that in the chat or verbally. And again, you'll have time to respond to this in the survey we'll send. So I'm not seeing any responses right now. And Tim, I think, Tim Hernandez volunteered to read the next vision element for us. So this one is for connected, safe, and accessible places. And Tim, thank you so much for doing that, for volunteering.
For sure. Well, good evening, everybody. In 2040, Near Northwest has environmentally friendly transportation options that are accessible, convenient, and affordable to all residents and businesses. A robust transit network offers frequent, reliable, and accessible options to key destinations. West 38th Avenue, Federal Boulevard, and Spear Boulevard have been transformed into vibrant, pedestrian-friendly transit streets, and a network of circulators and local regional buses travel primarily along former streetcar routes to access neighborhood commercial nodes and residential areas. Throughout the neighborhoods of Near Northwest, people of all ages and abilities travel safely and effortlessly by foot, bicycle, scooter, wheelchair, and other devices. A network of streets prioritizes people and the environment and are primarily dedicated to non-vehicle access.
Great, thank you so much. So kind of, again, just want to give you some space if there's anything, concerning that you want to bring up that you feel like, you could not support. We want to give you space for that now. Otherwise, we'll get more detailed feedback in the survey. Great. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any responses, so we'll move on to the next one. Do I have anyone else who would be willing to volunteer? Do a hand raise or indicate in the chat. Please.
I can go again if we need to, man. I don't want to make everybody sit.
I'm
happy to read if you want.
Oh, thanks. Maybe we'll have Juan so we can see a new face. Juan, thank you so much.
Yeah. Bail you out, Tim. All right. In 2040, public and private investments guided by sustainability and equity are successfully working to repair our relationship with nature and adapt to climate change. There are more trees to clean the air and reduce urban heat islands, especially surrounding industrial land and highways. Public investments in streets, parks, and open space contribute significantly to stormwater management to reduce flooding in key areas and filtering clean water that flows into the South Platte River. Private development has also contributed significantly to climate adaptation by reducing construction waste, producing clean energy, and reducing the use of fossil fuels, reducing car trips, and creating sustainable sites.
Thank you, Juan.
Sure.
And yeah, again, kind of same question. If you guys are seeing anything standing out that you feel like you couldn't support. And this was I don't think I forgot to mention, but this is the environmentally resilient vision element. All right.
Looks like Leslie volunteered for the next one. Thanks, Leslie.
Happy to do it, you guys. In 2040, Near Northwest has equitable access for all residents to a healthy and active life. The design of complete neighborhoods has increased walking and biking as a primary mode of travel. A sustainable food network provides access to a variety of affordable and culturally appropriate grocery options. Residents have access to clinics and urgent care services, including a variety of services available to support mental health and well-being. The population enjoys improved health outcomes and strengthened connections and community partnerships with service providers, and institutions have made health and well-being for Near Northwest residents a priority. Near Northwest parks and recreation facilities have been upgraded or expanded, I hope so, to meet the needs of a growing community. Residents continue to have excellent access to parks and open space, and priority connections have improved access to regional parks nearby. Families and people of all incomes and abilities are connected to nature and have access to programs that enhance their knowledge and access to a healthy life.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, and again, we'll just give some time if anyone is feeling there's something included in here that you cannot support, then I just indicate in the chat or verbally. And then I think I might be, was that the last of the vision elements, or was there another one?
That is it.
Yep.
Well, we just wanted to make sure we shared those with you since you all have been working so hard to help us develop language for this for the last few meetings. But again, you'll receive these via email with a survey, and take that time off in December to please kind of give your feedback on that. Thank you guys so much. Then we can, so now Cheney is gonna give you a summary of the issues and opportunities that the consulting team has been working on. And then we're gonna, after she kind of summarizes the issues that they've listed based on their research and public input, then I'll give you some polling questions and some follow-up questions to get your input on what we've found as a team.
Yeah, thank you, Grace. So Cheney here. I will be presenting, reporting out this issues and opportunities. As Grace said, this, will be kind of the culmination of our detailed analysis, looking at, going through data from the city, interviews with city agencies and other stakeholders, and then taking all of the feedback that we've gotten from you all and the community through surveys and interactive exercises with the community. So we kind of combined all of those things, compared and contrasted, and we're bringing up what we're calling an issues and opportunities summary. So this will be a public document that we will post to the website once it's complete. And this will be used by the public to review kind of as homework before our next engagement push in early 2022. So our hope is to get a lot of information, detailed information about what we've heard and what we're seeing in the data out there to inform and really get into rich discussions as we move into the initial recommendations, drafting those early next year. So just a few notes here. This is meant to be a summary of the most significant issues in Near Northwest today. It doesn't list every single issue identified, but these are the key issues. Your role is to tell us if you agree and if anything major is missing. And then we'll also ask which of these issues do you think is most unique to Near Northwest, as opposed to something that is also a citywide issue, for example. So we'll have some interactive exercises. We'll pause at the end of each topic and give us time to do that. So I'm going to present on each topic for approximately 10 minutes, and then we will have a couple polls and an open discussion on that topic. And there are 4 topics, if you'll remember. This is, as we said, how the document will eventually be laid out with these 4 primary overarching chapters. In addition, there will be chapters for each neighborhood, but these are kind of the overarching themes. And so we'll spend the first 45 minutes going through land use and built form and economy and housing. And then the second half going through mobility and quality of life. And if you have any questions as we go through these, if you're like confused about something, because it can be a lot of information, raise your hand or type in the chat so you don't forget, and then we'll address those when we pause. So each of these topics will have about 4 to 5 primary issues and opportunities that we're going to present. Issue number 1 under land use and built form is the displacement of Latino population and loss of culture. So this graph, I think we have shown before and kind of had some gasps at, even though, anecdotally, we know, here's a quote from someone in one of the surveys, that I miss the diversity in age, race, and income that used to be here. And yes, we know that we are hearing that in the community, but how do we compare that with the data? And when we compare it with the data, we see that there has been drastic change. So that is the first issue. Opportunities to address this in the planning process are to explore programs to stabilize existing at-risk and recently displaced residents. The city is already working on some policies that we'll get to, but we want your ideas on others. We plan to utilize our community navigators and our Promotora model during the planning process to reach out to these groups and really educate us from them and get more specific feedback. And we want to think about how we can celebrate this culture as we move forward in placemaking and designing future near Northwest places. In the red box on some of these, you'll kind of see, I want you to be thinking that and have knowledge of the fact that the city already has initiatives working on some of these things. So for example, the Denver's Chicano Storytelling Lab and Cultural Study, Historic Context Study will be, which is ongoing, will be important to reference for us. So issue number 2 is traditional neighborhood building forms being replaced with larger, more expensive units. So we hear this a lot in the community, right? That that these building forms are being replaced, and you know, here's just one example of the before and after. But we also want to compare that with the data. So the map on the right shows all of the black dots are new development that has happened in the near Northwest in the last 20 years. And so we kind of overlay that data with all kinds of, with other data, including the pink, which is single unit districts, and the purple, which is a conservation overlay district, and Potter Highlands Historic District. And so we kind of, what does that tell us? So it basically tells us that most areas that have changed, and I can toggle back to that map, tend to allow 2 or more units and do not have an overlay. So Sunnyside is currently exploring a conservation overlay for the entire neighborhood, and Potter Highlands already has one. Potter Highlands is zoned for 2 units, but they have that overlay. Chaffee Park, one of the issues identified through the analysis is that Chaffee Park is most at risk to displacement of single unit areas because it is the most affordable currently. So opportunities, what do we plan to do with this information and work with it? So work with the community to understand where traditional building forms are important to protect and why. So is it the character? Is it the affordability? Is it, you know, the streetscape? Like, what is it about the replacement of traditional building forms that we are not okay with? And then explore appropriate tools to address those concerns. And also with every NPI, we explore Blueprint Denver's descriptions. We should specifically look at those for this issue, look at low and low medium residential definitions, and see if that fits our vision for near Northwest, and you can modify it in your plan if not. In the works, so I mentioned we've Sunnyside Conservation Overlay is in draft form. There's also the citywide expanding housing affordability. So this is a citywide project looking at how to advance affordability citywide. And then we are also working on, for this NPI, a neighborhood pattern book, which will be wrapping up soon, and you all will get to take a look at that. Basically just looking at the physical patterns and for each neighborhood and listing commonalities and differences. Issue number 3 is underutilized industrial and commercial land near transit. So the map on the right, the blue dots are kind of where the bubbles where a lot of our mapping has told us that there's underutilized land. In other words, the value of the land is much higher than what sits on it. And so those tend to be areas where redevelopment is more prevalent or projected. And so the opportunity is that most of those blue areas are actually identified as opportunity areas for growth in Blueprint Denver. So what we want to do in this next phase is to really explore growth scenarios with the community. So looking at these areas where growth could occur and be accommodated through existing zoning, and then play around with like what that looks like. So that'll be a big exercise that we'll work on in this next phase. Issue number 4, I believe this is the last one, development trends and concern over land use diversification and creation of complete neighborhoods. So something that was brought up a lot in the community input is that the new development that is being built is all residential, so that there's no ground floor activation with neighborhood needs and businesses, local businesses. So that is important because without those services, especially in those mixed use districts where 100% residential products are going up, that can create lack of services and jobs for the near Northwest, create longer commutes to existing jobs, less tax income to the city, and lack of street activity in life. So what do we want to do with this? And in the plan process, we want to work with the community to identify priority areas where jobs, retail, and services are most needed, and then explore tools and opportunities for the private sector to deliver those complete neighborhoods. In the red, an example is something that Councilwoman Sandoval and District 1 has already championed, this active centers and quarters design overlay. So that applied to Tennyson and some other nodes in the Berkeley neighborhood. And so we might look at that as a tool, for example. Okay, so that kind of summarizes, again, the key issues and opportunities under land use and built form. So we're going to open it up and have some polling questions. I think Ella will bring those up and Grace will walk us through that.
Yes. All right. So
before we go into the polling, I want to make sure that nobody wanted to see if anyone had any clarifying questions. Like Janie, I'll ask if you could kind of explain what an overlay is. I'm sorry if maybe I'm the only one who doesn't know what that means, but I was a little confused by what that is and what the significance of having one is. Yeah,
sure. So an overlay district is, so there's base zoning. So any property that you look at has a zone, is within a zone district, and that tells you, what you can build, a certain height, how much area you can take up on your property, where the parking goes and things like that. So it's just rules around development. An overlay adds additional layers to that are specifically unique to a certain area. So there are conservation overlays that kind of tweak the base standards, such as the Potter Highlands, modifies the bulk plane and some height dimensions, front porches, things like that. So it can layer on an additional rules.
Okay, no, thank you, that's helpful. Did anyone else have any questions for clarification? I'll read over the 4 issues that Cheney identified. Just read them aloud so you can hear them once again, because we're going to ask some polling questions about them. But also, if you guys have any questions or anything you need clarified, please, enter in the chat or just verbally ask.
Leslie Twarogowski here. I'm wondering, as a follow-up question to the last question, are overlays specifically only for physical changes or physical attributes of a property, or do you also talk about affordability in overlays? Or less tangible policies in overlays, or are overlays only physical design considerations?
I can answer that if necessary.
Yeah, go ahead, Naomi.
Thank you. I was going to say, I'm not that I'm aware of, but I'm going to defer to Naomi because she's worked more on these than I have.
Thanks. It's a really good question. And most of the time overlays are focused on the physical aspects of design, but there's actually 3 types of overlays in the Denver zoning code. There's conservation overlay, which is meant to preserve existing patterns in a neighborhood. There's a design overlay, which is meant to kind of control and tweak future design, but not necessarily preserve existing patterns. And then there's actually incentive overlays. And so that may be a little bit of where you'd be talking about, Leslie. It's there's only a couple of them that exist, but they generally have to do these days with incentives for providing affordable housing. So there's one that's applied to the kind of 38th and Blake area. And I believe that there's another one that I'm not as familiar with, but because that's the only kind of overlay that doesn't talk about like per se actual design aspects. In terms of affordable housing incentives, I would urge everyone to check out the Expanding Housing Affordability project that's going on right now from CPD. And it's kind of building upon most of those incentive overlays. It's the same work they've been trying to do. But I think it's an interesting question of incentive overlays in general. If, for instance, you could have an incentive overlay to, for example, promote small business or something like that. So they're more unusual in the planning department, and I'm not quite sure if CPD is trying to maybe not use them as much, but they do exist. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Naomi. And so we'll get into affordability as kind of the next included in the next issue that we're discussing. So just in terms of like, if you feel like in order to respond to some questions, if there's anything else you need clarified, otherwise I can read these over and then we'll pull up the polling questions. Okay, I'm not hearing anyone, but yeah, feel free to enter anything in the chat if something comes up. So I'll just read these over again, and Ella, you can pull up the polls too. So
Right.
These are the issues that Cheney summarized. So displacement of Latino Latinx population and loss of culture, traditional neighborhood building forms being replaced with larger, more expensive units, underutilized industrial and commercial land near transit, and development trends and concern over land use diversification and creation of complete neighborhoods. So those were the 4 issues that were identified. And so you guys should see a poll up now. And the first poll asks, of these 4 issues that you see listed, which of these land use issues is most relevant to the unique needs of the near Northwest? So if you see anything that seems to speak to this area specifically. And then the second question asks you, is kind of asking you how well we captured the issues related to land use and built form. So do you agree with this statement? The issues listed capture the specific land use challenges of the near Northwest. And so you have strongly agree, neither disagree nor disagree or disagree. And so we'll kind of leave this up here until we kind of see most of you have completed it.
Yeah, so looks like, yeah, we've got 5 responses at this point. I'd love to get something from at least all the steering committee members. Give another couple seconds for that.
I'm sorry, can you tell us where to find the questions? Some of us came in a little late.
So it should be on your, it should be on your screen. And some of you guys might need to, if you're on the computer screen, you might need to make your box a little bit bigger to read all of the text. So it should have popped up on your screen when Ella launched the poll.
Tim, are you seeing it now? Are you?
Yes, I was used to in earlier ones where we had to go on to something that worked from our phones. Sorry, I didn't know you had this cool
technology. We are, for this size, we can just do it all built into Zoom, which is great. So, all right, looks like I think we have almost as many. I'm giving somebody 10 more seconds to add in thoughts. All right, so I'm gonna now end. Oh, okay, got one more. I'm going to end the poll, but then I'm going to share. You should be able to see the results. So let me end poll and then share results. And unfortunately, I don't get to see what you're seeing. So I hope you are now seeing the results of the poll. But let me know if you're not.
So it looks, so in response to the first question, which of these land use issues is most relevant to the unique needs of the near Northwest? It seems like a lot of people felt issue number 1, a little over half, displacement of Latino, Latinx population and loss of culture. And about a third of you felt issue number 2, traditional neighborhood building forms being replaced with larger, more expensive units. And just a few of you with the number 4 with development trends and concerned over land use diversification and creation of complete. Sorry, I have to make my box bigger. Is it complete neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Sorry, mine was getting a little cut up. Okay, and then for the second question where we asked kind of like, how well do these 4 issues capture, you know, the important issues in the neighborhood related to land use and built forms? So we asked, do you agree with the statement the issues listed capture the language or the land use challenges in the near Northwest? And it looks like the majority or the largest group was an agree, with some in strongly agree, and then a few in kind of the neutral ground. And so kind of to follow up with that, it seems like, you know, we're getting there, but we maybe have some room to improve. So we'd like to ask you kind of, was there something out of these sort of, and keep in mind, we're not trying to identify all of the issues related to land use and built form. We're really, which really is kind of that the physical aspects of the neighborhood. Is there anything in these 4 issues, and granted, some of these might come up later in the different topics we're covering up. Is there anything you kind of see that's missing here? And
Grace, do you want me to stop sharing so people can kind of discuss
so you can
as a
see
group?
those 4 issues maybe again. So and we're really wanting to capture what are the most significant, important issues related to this issue. And you can speak verbally, or if you feel more comfortable in the text writing in the chat.
And I'm seeing, it looks like Nola chimed in. Issue 3 would have been my second choice. Yeah, some stuff coming in on the chat, Grace. You're much more graceful at facilitating those, so I'll let you go from there.
So I'm not hearing anyone responding to the what's missing.
I will respond.
Did you want to speak to that?
I'd like to speak to that. One thing that I heard in our conversations over our last 2 meetings was really the range of differences in needs across the neighborhoods. And I think that really is a land use and built form range of issues that kind of hits on number 3, where some neighborhoods really have that issue that's very important, and in other neighborhoods it's a little bit different. So it's not a huge excluded issue, but I think acknowledging from a land use and built form that there is that difference in neighborhoods is important.
So could you, I'm trying to make sure that I understand like what you're saying is missing. So is it in terms of just recognizing that each neighborhood is different in terms of, is there a specific thing that you feel is needed in terms
I mean, like, I think for number 3, I agree that is a really important one for some neighborhoods, but for other neighborhoods, that is not, maybe one of their top 4 issues. And so that one in particular, I think, is different across the different neighborhoods.
No, thank you. No, thanks for clarifying that. Yeah, that's important that to recognize the differences in the neighborhoods in regards to these. Did anyone else want to respond to the what's missing question?
Can I go?
Nola, yeah.
I want to just build off what Renee said just slightly and kind of go to my comment, but I agree that number 3, for instance, is very relevant for Chaffee Park. But I think what I would like to see more of in all of these, and including number 3 and number 1 in particular, are not just like that it's an issue, but what are the roots of that issue? Because to me, the opportunities don't necessarily speak enough to the issue. And I feel like if we dug into the roots of the issue more, we could help to identify maybe more what the opportunities or the solution should be. If that makes sense. I don't know if that fits in what's missing. Another area of kind of what I was thinking is missing is just the area of like public land and public uses. I feel like that might fit into land use also.
For public land and public uses, are you referring to kind of like green spaces? Or are you referring to something broader than that?
I think for equity and environmental purposes, yeah.
And a lot of this, we're wanting to focus on the defining of the issues. There were opportunities mentioned, but I think right now we're really wanting to focus on like, are we getting the issues right? Though you all get a lot of time to give input on how do we address those issues or what are the opportunities there. But I think just as a reminder, like that, because I know that you were saying that we need to look more into like where the root of the problem, and when we talk about what are the opportunities. So yeah, I wanted to acknowledge that and also say that as we move forward, we're going to be looking more at that opportunity side. But today we're kind of focusing on the issues more. Like, are we identifying the issues correctly? And I saw a couple of other hands go up too. I think Rebecca had her hand up.
And Craig, I just want to chime in really quickly on to another point Nola made. You mentioned needing more information on the root causes, and that's absolutely true. I think you know, the full issues and opportunities reports may have a little bit more, but then as we get into the recommendations phase, we'll be working with this group, with the community, to more broadly figure out what those root causes are and really expand our kind of menu of opportunities. So that's a great point, and I just want to assure you that that will be part of the next steps. That this first, we just want to say, are we focusing on the right list of problems, and then we're going to really dive into them more. So sorry, Rebecca, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to respond to that piece as well.
I mean, the only thing I was going to say is that we have a broader loss of history and culture, because this has been such a diverse neighborhood over time. And if we can get into details about that later on, I'm perfectly happy.
Were there some other hands up too? Thank you, Rebecca, for sharing that. I'm trying to look at the hands up. Ella, are you kind of seeing that more?
Yeah, it looks like Tim has his hand up, and
that was an accident. Sorry, that was an accident.
Okay. And Cheney, you're sharing your screen on the not presentation mode. Let me know if you want me to unshare.
Okay, I was gonna ask, am I still sharing? Usually it has a glow around it that tells me no.
You are sharing. Okay. And now
right.
You're back in presentation mode.
Okay, perfect. So we can move on, and this is perfect timing. So we'll transition now into economy and housing. So I believe there are also 4 primary kind of lumped issues and opportunities here. Number 1 being residential displacement, high housing costs, and lack of access to upward mobility. So we have some charts here that, again, I believe we've shown you, but it shows the curve of household income and home value. Median rent has increased 58% since 2000. So we have the data there to support that once again. Opportunities are to explore incentives and programs to help low and moderate income homeowners stay, and incentives to landlords to maintain rental affordability. Also to explore short and long-term solutions for housing our extremely low income citizens and people experiencing homelessness. So some questions just generally that we plan to ask the community along with these issues and opportunities are, where does existing affordable housing options exist in the neighborhoods, and how can they be preserved? Near Northwest commercial corridors and areas surrounding 41st and Fox are identified as opportunity areas to provide affordable and mixed income housing and new development. So we want to confirm that those are the right locations for that. What are some opportunities and strategies within low and low medium residential areas to provide affordable housing? And then what are opportunities to house our most vulnerable populations? So in the works, this has been brought up a couple times tonight, and if you haven't, I would just Google search the expanding housing affordability. It's a citywide project. It is far along in draft phase, and there's a comprehensive report. There's also a 2-pager, but that's going to be really important that we all look at that.
I just dropped the link in the chat if anyone wants to take a look.
Okay, and then also coming soon is equity and rezoning. So any rezonings that occur in the neighborhoods, the city is looking at how can equity be enforced in any rezoning projects. And then there's Denver's safe outdoor spaces. Issue number 2, commercial displacement and growing demand for retailers serving everyday household needs. So this is just an example before and after of kind of the traditional commercial buildings, the 1-story brick storefronts, the Laughing Latte. I think there used to be a thrift store that I used to frequent in there. And then it has since been demolished, and then what's being built, and this isn't always the case, but you can see that there's ground floor space, but a lot of it is vacant. And so at the same time there is this need, right, and desire for people to walk to grab a head of lettuce or some garlic, or meet their friends and get goods and services and have outdoor dining. So how can new developments serve these needs, going back to that complete neighborhood? So the opportunities here are to explore locations and strategies to bring more everyday household goods and services into the neighborhoods. So looking at locations and land use and types. And then this was brought up a few times in the steering committee about activating existing spaces. So for example, the Dollar Tree that is now closed, could that become a grocery store? Are there any businesses that went out of business due to COVID? Can we activate those? A storefront in Chaffee Park that's been vacant for a while. So there are some vacancies that could be filled, but what are the other strategies to really, and locations to make it, to fulfill this complete neighborhood ideal? So in the works, there's the city has a legacy business criteria study happening. That's looking at criteria for what does it mean to be a legacy business. There are likely many in near Northwest, and how do we keep them around for generations? And then also a business impact opportunity fund that's also available. Issue number 3 is a lack of organizations to assist small businesses with advertising, promotion, and maintenance. So there are these, many of these cherished neighborhood nodes typically on our former streetcar corridors, but they're kind of all alone. It is up to them to promote their business and, beautify their spaces and all of that. There's no real organization around those businesses to rally and bring them up. Leslie can talk about this. Federal Bid is one of the few that has a wonderful, leader and champion like Leslie, and are doing things to advance the businesses in that location. So are there other opportunities in Near Northwest to explore districts like that? We want to work with the existing organizations that are there, like the Federal Bid and the Merchants Associations on 32nd and 38th. And then we're already starting to do lots of business outreach to these groups. Councilman Sandoval mentioned Platt Street coming up in early December. So this is more small business focused, and we will be meeting and reaching out to hear from those business owners more specifically. But this is, kind of did elevate as an issue. In the works, the city has a pilot program to fund exploratory efforts to create bids and merchants associations. So there actually is funding to do this type of thing. So that is something that could be low-hanging fruit that could begin even before this plan is adopted. And finally, for economy and housing is preserving and protecting primary jobs. So industrial demand as a whole is growing. There is more demand for industrial uses. However, at the same time, that is what we're losing. So in Near Northwest, Chaffee Park's industrial area is listed as a preservation area. The area in green, sort of in northeast Sunnyside on that map, is per blueprint stated to be a growth area and identified as a community center and corridor. So this will be a big discussion that we'll want to have with the community, primarily focused in that northeast Sunnyside area, is what is the right amount of industrial to be kept? What are those industrial uses that can be intermingled with a mix of uses, including housing and jobs? So we want to explore industrial uses that are desirable to protect, and then explore ways that new industrial uses might be able to be integrated into these new community centers. And if not, where do they go? And so that is kind of a high level overview of economy and housing. We're going to open it up and do a similar poll and discussion. And then after this, we'll do a quick break, give you guys some brain time and get back at it.
And it looks like we did get one question, actually two questions in the chat from one. It's an interesting quote regarding childcare. We talked about that as part of a solution to affordability. I think that was on issue 1.
So I grew up in this neighborhood and brought my family back, so my kids could as well. However, I've been priced out of literally everything, even with 2 full-time incomes when we factor in childcare.
Yeah, so that's definitely been brought up more than once. It is an issue, and I think that would be categorized more in terms of access to services. So we'll talk about that in as an issue in quality of life.
And then Rebecca had asked, I did not, and then I'm not sure if did someone respond to her? Maybe Councilwoman Sandoval responded, says. Yeah. So maybe she's already answered Rebecca's question there in the chat. And I know a few of you indicated that maybe a ranked list would be helpful. So you could say like, what was your number 1 and 2? So maybe that's something we can look into as we either if we send this out to you for further feedback, or send it out for public. When we send it out to the public, we'll that's good feedback to hear from you.
Yeah, I answered Rebecca's. You had West Highland, the 32nd, but just so you all know, that's West Highland, and it doesn't go all the way down east of Federal. So the the 32nd Avenue Business Association.
Great, thank you for responding to that question about the 32nd Avenue Business Association. So again, just that we'll have the kind of the same questions as we had last time. So again, I'll just kind of read over the 4 issues that Cheney had mentioned, and we can pull up the poll as well. So the first was residential displacement. So under economy and housing, residential displacement, high housing costs, and lack of access to upward mobility. Number 2 was commercial displacement and growing demand for retailers serving everyday household needs. Number 3 was lack of organizations to assist small businesses with advertising, promotion, and maintenance. And number 4 was preserving and protecting primary jobs. And so.
All right, so I will launch that poll. So you should be seeing it up on your Zoom right now.
So again, that first question is, which one is the most relevant to the needs of the unique needs of the near Northwest? And the second one is kind of asking about how well we've captured the issues. So do you agree with the statement, the issues listed capture the specific economy and housing challenges of the near Northwest? And you can select it, strongly agree, all the way down to strongly disagree.
Got a couple more people to get their responses in. All right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end this one and share it. All right, so you should be able to see the responses now.
So for the first question, which of these economy and housing issues is most relevant to the unique needs of the near Northwest? It looks like we had the most number of answers around residential displacement, high housing costs, and lack of access to upward mobility. And then for the second question, basically sort of capturing how well this list captures the issue specific, how well we're capturing the economy and housing issues in the near Northwest. It seems like most folks felt agree. They felt we were doing a pretty good job with a few strongly agrees. So it seems like, you know, again, we have a little bit of room for growth. If anyone wants to share, like we're wanting to capture the most pressing issues. Is there a pressing issue that we, in the near Northwest, that we didn't capture amongst these 4? If anyone would like, sure, they can do it so in the chat or verbally or raise your hand. I'm not seeing any responses, and it's sort of another thing. Was there a question to ask would be, is there something included that doesn't seem to reflect an important need? So of the 4 things that we listed on the issues list, is there something on there that doesn't seem to reflect an important need? No. All right, so
Grace, do you want me to stop sharing? And
yeah, I think you can stop sharing. And I think, so hopefully that means that maybe we've captured those 4 issues fairly well. And, we're gonna, this is gonna continue to be developed and you'll be involved in that process. For now, we'll take a break for everyone. So we'll do 5 minutes. That works. Did anyone need to say anything before we did a 5-minute break?
Renee just did add that number 3 is not just lack of organizations, but funding. So I'm going to add that in the notes.
Thank you, Renee, for sharing that. And yeah, and if things come up to you kind of later on, feel free to add those in the chat if something kind of comes to mind that maybe just didn't at the moment. And then Nola added disparity of housing and economy in between neighborhoods. I need to think about how to word this more as an issue. Yeah. So is that maybe speaking to an inequity, Nola? I don't know, if I know you weren't feeling well. I know if you kind of think of a better way that you want to word that, feel free to add that to the chat, or if you want to kind of clarify your meaning there, feel free to unmute yourself and kind of and clarify.
And again, like many of these big issues, if it's something that you need to kind of marinate on and then get back, we'll be sharing the broader issues and opportunities report as well. And so in the kind of bigger context, we'll be continuing to welcome the input along those lines of how to word those things and make sure they're captured. All right, well.
Should we take a 5-minute break and then come back to cover the last two areas for the issues kind of report out?
Let's do that. And of course, if you guys think of other stuff from this topic, throw it in the chat or raise your hand. This isn't the end of the conversation now, but yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 7:15 and pick up with mobility.
Ella, can you stop sharing? Can you kick me off?
Yes, I can.
Thanks.
There. All right, we'll see you guys at 7:15.
And get back into the presentation. If everyone could share their, let us see your faces if you can, and participate. I will share my screen again and get into mobility. Okay, just want to make sure, shake your head. Yes, you can see the screen. Okay. All right, so into mobility, I believe there's 5 issues here. We've combined the first 2 just for ease of demonstrating that map-wise. Issue number 1 is the street grid and connectivity challenges from the orientation of streets and campus-like developments. So all of the areas in the light red are large parcels that lack connectivity. And then in this area near Northwest, as you know, in the Highland area, we have where the 2 Denver grids meet. And so it creates some challenges at those grid intersections. And then issue number 2 is that we have some major barriers like the interstates, the railroad tracks, and those prevent connections to adjacent neighborhoods. And then minor barriers, which are our arterial streets and transit streets that have multiple problematic intersections near priority transit stops. So when we overlaid data, we looked at the most challenging intersections where the red X's are, and we overlaid multiple data points, one of them being the highest boarding transit stops. And so you can see a lot of those black dots also have red X's on them. And so this is where the majority of pedestrians are trying to get to transit and use transit, but they are also very dangerous intersections. So we want to look at that. Opportunities. So we want to evaluate those problem intersections, especially on the priority transit streets and where the two street grids intersect. We want to ensure new development on large sites. So any of those shaded red areas, reintroduce traditional walkable street grids, and evaluate the feasibility of additional bike and pedestrian crossings that could span study area barriers. This was brought up a lot in the community feedback, looking through all the comments, you know, other pedestrian bridges over I-25 to get to downtown, I-70 to connect Chaffee Park to Sunnyside. So we want to look at those opportunities and then enhance some of the ones that are already there. Crumbling infrastructure, not enough lighting, they don't feel safe to use. So again, if we're trying to create these complete neighborhoods and advance a diverse mobility choices, we want to make it easy and comfortable to do so. The issue number 3 is a lack of sidewalks in Chaffee Park, parts of Sunnyside, and a lack of adequate sidewalks and crosswalks on priority transit streets. So we heard a lot from Chaffee Park residents that the sidewalks, you know, are usually, if they do exist at all, they're attached to the curb and they're very small. You can't walk with a stroller or a wheelchair. So we want to provide sidewalk equity throughout the area. And then there was a lot of talk about not enough crossings along 38th and Federal specifically, that you have to walk too far to cross the street, even though your destination is very close, you have to walk out of your way to get there. So our opportunities, we want to look how we can fill in the gaps and widen sidewalks in Chaffee Park to improve that sidewalk quality equity, and then focus on opportunities to improve sidewalk quality and intersection safety at critical intersections that connect to key destinations, especially along those priority transit corridors and Vision Zero corridors. Issue number 4 is that the majority of streets in Near Northwest prioritize the car and leave limited space for other modes of travel. So what are the opportunities? Can we work with the community? I think there were a lot of comments. Here's one from the public, you know, making 41st, there's a neighborhood bikeway coming, but because it's a side street and it connects to multiple schools and parks and 41st and Fox, you know, can we think outside the box and use some of these choice streets a little differently? So we look forward to working with the community to identify some of those streets and then look at how they could be configured differently. We also want to look at future green streets, streets that prioritize the treatment of stormwater and how they can really be designed to accommodate recreational programming, and then completing the bike network. And so in the works is Denver Shared Streets Initiative. So the city is developing guidelines for these shared streets that were common during COVID. So the city allowed, you know, businesses and neighborhoods to reclaim their streets and use them for different purposes, such as outdoor dining or pedestrian streets. And the community loved it. So they are currently going into writing some guidelines for Denver Shared Streets Initiative. So we get to think about that. Where are these streets in Near Northwest that we could look at, you know, think outside the box and perhaps think of shared streets. And then finally is completing an incomplete bike network. So the good news is, and the map on the right shows all of the future bike facilities that are planned. Many of them are under construction or newly completed, which is great news. And then many of them will be completed by 2023. But we want to, with that in mind, work with the community to, you know, figure out how to build out a complete bike network and what that means for Near Northwest in the next 20 to 30 years. And also, we just heard a lot about north-south connectivity in particular. So looking at those key connections. Okay, so Grace will open it up with polling and questions.
Okay, I'll just kind of recap the mobility issues. I'll just read them over and then we'll open up those polls again for your feedback. Again, if you had any questions about clarification, feel free to raise your hand or type something in the chat if there's something that's unclear. So the issues were, again, under mobility, street grid and connectivity challenges, orientation of streets and campus-like developments. Number 2 was major barriers prevent connections to adjacent neighborhoods, and minor barriers have multiple problematic intersections nearby priority transit stops. Number 3 is lack of sidewalks in Chafee Park, part of Sunnyside, and lack of adequate sidewalks and crosswalks on priority transit streets. Number 4 is the majority of streets prioritize the car and leave limited space for other modes of travel. And number 5 is incomplete bike network. And so if Ella awesome. So yeah, again, if you can kind of respond by saying for the first question, which of the mobility issues you feel is the most relevant to the unique needs of the near Northwest. And then for the second question, kind of letting us know how well we've captured the issues. Answer, do you agree with this statement? The issues listed capture the specific mobility challenges of the near Northwest. And Ella, are we looking, do we have most folks responding?
Just getting there. I know we've lost a couple people, getting some more in now. There's there are 5 here, so I just want to give a little longer. But yeah, I think now with the 2 people who've left, that should be it. So I will end and share the results.
So for the first question, which of these mobility issues is most relevant to the unique needs of the near Northwest? We're a little more spread out on this response. So with the 2 most popular answers being issue number 2, major barriers prevent connections to adjacent neighborhoods, and minor barriers have, sorry, I think for some reason I am not able to see the full thing.
And minor barriers have multiple problematic intersections near priority transit stops.
Thanks. And then, and kind of with both of those had 38%. So issue 4 also had 38%, with the majority of streets prioritize the car and leave limited space for other modes of travel. So not as clear kind of there, but kind of seem fairly strong amongst those 2. And then for the second, asking, sort of how well we've captured the issues, it seems that we got a little over half say strongly agree and agree. So that's pretty good. But again, always kind of room for growth. And so kind of want to ask those same questions to you guys when you sort of look at these mobility issues, and maybe we could stop sharing the poll so like people can see the screen, although I think if you guys need to kind of move it, you can do that too. Is there an important issue, that something that's really pressing in the neighborhood that we're missing here in regards to mobility? And you guys can respond verbally or again in the chat.
I do see one thing, if it's possible, if I could chime in.
Yes, go ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah. Just one thing I think, and maybe this might be kind of remedied by what we're talking about in number 2, but I do think it's important to name that one of the key components of mobility in our neighborhood is also kind of the complicated highway sets that we have, like ways that you get from I-25 into the north side, right? I'm talking like 38th, 20th, 17th, Spirit, right? Like those are really difficult intersections for a lot of people, and they leave you in very different spots in our neighborhood. Spots that aren't necessarily easy to traffic other parts of our neighborhood from. And so I think signage or some type of thing, I'm not sure where that fits or if it fits in here, but I do think it's something that's important to our mobility as well.
Oh, thanks. And I now I'm recalling you mentioning kind of the crazy, what you I think had called something like the crazy exits in the neighborhoods in a previous meeting.
Yeah, man, that's me.
Did anyone else want to share something they feel is kind of missing from these mobility issues? Lexi, I think.
Yeah, it's not something missing necessarily. I guess this is the first, just an observation. It seems like the first one that is specifically calling out separate neighborhoods. And I guess I was just wondering when we're gonna get into that. You know, it just feels like the other ones have been kind of overarching and not really specific to particular neighborhoods of the four. And so I guess I'm just wondering, I mean, it makes sense. Obviously, I don't disagree with it at all. I guess I'm just trying to understand from a higher level when we get into those breakdowns of neighborhoods and what that looks like.
Yeah, thanks. And Ella, do you want to respond to that? I know moving forward, we are doing specific neighborhood work.
Yeah, no, and I think what the kind of the structure of the plans is that things that are overarching or that apply in more than one neighborhood kind of go in the mobility section, and then for things that are unique to neighborhoods, that will be in the neighborhood chapters. I think what you're seeing that shift here just because the actual issues for mobility happen to be place-based. You know, it's not just like where, you know, like displacement or loss of culture. That's really a general thing that doesn't have a specific location, whereas these mobility issues do. So I think that's just, you're kind of seeing the nature of the information reveal itself that way. But yeah, there will be things that are, you know, like federal, you know, different, or 38 is touching several neighborhoods that will probably still be in the overarching chapter because they're not unique. But for all topics, we'll look at both the overall and then the neighborhood specific.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Lorenzo Ramirez added in the chat that the old stone sidewalks in Lower Highlands make it very difficult for the elderly and people with disabilities to get around. So thank you, Lorenzo, for sharing that.
And I'm sure it's also the same in the other areas that were part of this plan, because we're such an old neighborhood. They're charming, but really hard. I see so many people struggle, and people in wheelchairs have to use the streets, and that's very dangerous. So that's something I think other neighborhoods are also maybe struggling with too.
No, thank you for sharing that. Did anyone else want to add to kind of our what's missing? Not seeing any response there. And how about for sort of the other question, is there anything you guys see on here that doesn't seem like an important need for the near Northwest? Were there any of these items that kind of didn't really speak to something you feel is one of the top issues in regards to mobility? Okay. Not seeing much of a response, so maybe and if you guys think of something as we move forward, feel free to enter that, you know, in the chat as we move forward. But we'll kind of move on to our last issues section with quality of life with Cheney.
Yep, perfect. We are right on time. Okay, so quality of life, running through these similar to the rest. Issue number 1 under quality of life is investment is needed in near Northwest parks and recreation facilities, and one park needs a name. So the graphic here outlining the near Northwest neighborhoods shows that capital investment citywide in our neighborhoods are the lowest. And so there is a need to invest in parks and recreation in near Northwest. The good news is, something to build on, an opportunity is that 95% of Near Northwest residents are within 10-minute walk or roll or a half-mile walk shed from a park. So that's great. Citywide average is 86%. So you guys are above average there. But the quality of those parks and the amenities that they provide need upgraded. So we want to explore opportunities to improve existing parks and park access and prioritize desired amenities and investments with the community. So this will be a fun exercise, prioritizing where, future capital investment should go and what amenities are missing and what parks should be upgraded and how. And there's already tons of ideas that we've run through from the community feedback, especially the park at 51st and Zuni. So an opportunity for this plan process to hopefully give that park a name and a future plans. So that is exciting. Issue number 2 is that there are quite a few larger regional parks, both within and outside Near Northwest, but they are difficult to access. So parks like Sloan's Lake and Berkeley Lake Park, and then all of the parks along the river. So opportunities there to continue to build out that network, that bike network that we showed. The city is already working on that, with 46th and 23rd being 2 corridors that connect to Berkeley Lake and Sloan's Lake parks. And then improvements to the underpass that connects to Cuernavaca Park. So there was a lot of feedback and comments about that being feeling unsafe, especially at night. There's not enough lighting and there can be trash and things down there. So fixing those existing access points and making them, again, more user-friendly and a better experience. And then looking for new opportunities too, such as the River Mile project. So coordinating with the future plans for the River Mile project and making sure that those connections to Jefferson Park are where they need to be. Issue number 3 is lack of localized impervious areas and treatments to filter and slow down stormwater. So the opportunities, so this map at a glance can look confusing, but the area dashed in this kind of green line is called the Sunnyside Basin. And that's a stormwater basin that the city maps. And it is identified as a high priority basin, which means it is a funding priority for the city to improve it. So that's good news. And we just want to work with the community and through our interviews with the city and the stormwater team there, they talk about, finding and targeting the biggest bang for the buck projects. So don't go and propose a bunch of little, things, even though we do need to address stormwater at all levels. They really are more interested in what are the big projects, the biggest bang for the buck. So we want to work with the community to identify some of those opportunities, as well as looking at some of those Green Street ideas that we talked about that can be, hold and filter stormwater, perhaps provide recreation, and better pedestrian and bike facilities. Issue number 4 is lack of access to healthy food. That was a big one, especially for low-income residents. So we want to explore the opportunities for grocery stores, specifically the food access map there shows that Sunnyside is the highest need, and then Chaffee Park as well as Highland. So how can we get healthy food, both in forms of grocery stores as well as different options like a food co-op or neighborhood bodegas, bringing back the bodegas was talked about, mobile food pantries, delivery options to our residents that can't get out and about as often as we can. So we want to look at food access across the board and all of the solutions that are possible in the Near Northwest for that. Also looking at working with existing food service providers such as Bienvenidos, all of the churches and nonprofits, and the existing program Healthy Food for Denver Kids. So there are some programs available that we can capitalize on, but we want to brainstorm the best and most creative ideas for Near Northwest for food access. And then finally, issue number 5 is lack of access to resources for people experiencing homelessness, low income and set income earners, and marginalized populations. So this is access to childcare, access to healthcare. Let me rephrase that: access to affordable healthcare and affordable childcare, affordable senior services, all of these community services that make it viable to live, work, and play in Near Northwest. So we will also engage the community navigators and the promotoras. They will be getting onboarded late this year and then be out in the community next year. They are an extension of our team, and they are intended to work specifically with these marginalized populations. So this will be an issue that we'll want to address with them. And then work with area churches and nonprofits to partner on solutions as well. So this is our almost the last slide. You guys are doing great. So we'll go through polling and comments on quality of life, and then we will talk about next steps.
Yeah, so again, if there was something that wasn't clear, let us know, or, type it in the chat, or speak up and let us know if there was something, in the summary that wasn't clear to you.
Does one include complete lack of recreation center or library, or is that a different issue?
Yeah, no, that would include, it would include existing and future needs. So if a neighborhood is lacking one, we would address it under that issue.
So kind of just like before, I will kind of read through the 5, and then Ella's going to pull up the polling questions that you guys should be familiar with now. So under quality of life, the first issue was investment is needed in Near Northwest parks and recreation facilities, and one park needs a name. Number 2 was large parks within and outside Near Northwest are difficult to access. Number 3 is lack of localized impervious areas and treatments to filter and slow down stormwater. Number 4 is lack of access to healthy food, especially for low-income residents. And number 5 is lack of access to resources for people experiencing homelessness, low income and set income earners, and marginalized populations.
And Tim had asked for number 3, do we mean pervious areas rather than impervious? And I believe so. Lack of localized impervious areas, or sorry, pervious. Tim, good catch. Yes, thank you. So the problem is too much impervious area. So that should be phrased the lack of localized pervious areas. Thank you for catching that. And the poll you're about to see reflects the same misstep. So yeah, that should be pervious for the poll as well. So we'll go ahead and launch that.
I'll read aloud the questions, but you're probably familiar with them now. But which of these quality of life issues is most relevant to the unique needs of the Near Northwest? Question 1. And then number 2 is, do you agree with the statement, the issues capture the specific quality of life challenges of the Near Northwest?
Look at that, it's a live fix. Thanks, Jamie. Waiting for a couple more. That Might be everyone. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna end poll and share the results.
So sort of like last time we had, people feel as kind of split amongst the responses in terms of the one they felt was the most relevant. So issue 1, investment is needed in near Northwest parks and recreation facilities, and one park needs a name, got 38%. As did issue 4, lack of access to healthy food, especially for low income residents. But also notable was issue 5 got 23% with lack of access to resources for people experiencing homelessness, low income and set income earners, and marginalized populations. And then in terms of how well people agreed that we captured the specific quality of life challenges in the near Northwest, is that 69% felt they agreed, and then the rest looked like they strongly agreed. So again, we have some room for improvement. So we'd like to ask those sort of same questions of what are we missing? When you look at these 5 issues, is there something that reflects an important need in the near Northwest that we didn't capture in these top 5? So I'm not hearing from anyone from that, but if anything comes up, feel free to speak up or put something in the chat. And then kind of following up, is there anything that was included on this list that you feel like isn't an important need for, or you wouldn't prioritize as a high need in the near Northwest? Any of these 5 issues? Well, hopefully that means we capture things fairly well. And obviously sometimes it takes a lot to process, and we're going to continue to work through these topics as we move forward. So don't, feel like if you forgot to say something today, that was your last chance. We'll continue to touch on these as we move forward. And yeah, we're kind of running ahead of schedule, which is exciting. And thank you guys for keeping up your energy. I know daylight savings and being on the weird day, we really appreciate you guys showing up tonight and giving us your energy and your input, and helping us kind of make sure we're kind of steering in the right direction. So
yeah, it was dark well before we started. So
yeah.
Kudos to everyone for showing up.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for your feedback, and we realize that this is a lot to take in. This was a lot. So vision statements, and throwing at you all of the key issues and opportunities based on lots and lots of data and public input. So we want to give you time, and this was a quick turnaround from October to November meetings. So we would like to ask, we will develop some sort of simple online survey that is interactive that we will send around. And then that way you can give us more detailed input and feedback on the draft vision statements and the issues and opportunities draft summary. And then just remember that in December, there is no steering committee meeting. So please invite us to an event. Or feel free to host your own, and please reach out if you would like to do that, and we can give you some ideas and some materials to help you out. And then we're also going to be spreading the word. So we want to use December to help spread the word about community workshops and focus groups that will be coming up in early 2022. So we're going to be planning for those, and we will really want you all to help us spread the word about those so that they can be well attended. They will be very, very critical times in this process where we are, that they can hear all of these issues and then help us draft initial recommendations. So that will be an exciting time that we look forward to. We hope to be out in the streets, a team of us in late December, right before the holiday, to deliver some. We're making some stickers and all kinds of Near Northwest swag to hand out, and some window decals to go in businesses, so you could spread the word about that. And we're going to stencil sidewalks and put up yard signs, just to help get the awareness out there about the plan and to get as much involvement in this next phase, because it is going to be very, very critical plan phase. So thank you so much for your participation, and you can have a restful holidays, and then we look forward to getting back to work with you in January. January 25th.
Yeah, so January 25th, we'll be back to our normal schedule. And I just saw Tim Hernandez said we'd love to have some of the students, referring to the stickers and swag. So yeah, let us know. We'll be getting that all, I think, next week. And we're happy to, but we'd love to have your help getting that out there. The other thing, so we'll be working on this kind of homework for you for December. We haven't figured out the exact format for that yet. So if you, both for the vision statements and for the issues and opportunities report, so that's the full report of the highlights of which Cheney went through tonight. Let me know, send me an email. I know, like we heard tonight, that people wanted, rather than just listing your first, you wanted to be able to rank the issues, or that to be able to really talk about opportunities, we need to understand the root causes. That kind of feedback's really helpful. So if you have other ideas like that, of like, hey, I really want the opportunity to weigh in on X, Y, Z, please feel free to email me. We'll be developing that, and we'd be happy to tailor it to any specifics that this group wants to be able to weigh in on. So we'll probably send that out. I'm guessing after Thanksgiving is when that will come to you guys. So thank you all for joining. Again, a dark and unusual night, so glad to have you here. Thank you very much, and you're all going to get 10 surprise minutes back in your evening.
Good night, everybody. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, happy holidays. We'll see you all in January.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.